Convenience is no longer optional. We learned earlier on that we needed to be more than a dry cleaner. There's not a long-term strategy anymore, right? I have to evolve or somebody's going to evolve right past me. Consumers have changed. Expectations have changed.
Well, welcome to Cleaner Conversations. This is a podcast that has been designed specifically for the dry cleaner and the laundromat space. We're excited to have our guest on today. I just want to go over thoughts behind how we designed this podcast. One, we want to equip as much as possible. We bring on some of the top voices in this industry to make sure that they're answering some of the questions that are being asked. We want to educate. We want to bring some of the how-tos, the solutions to certain things that are out there consistently that dry cleaner operators are asking. And we want to entertain, right? There's some great stories of people who have gone through some hellish times to be the success that they are. They've been where some of you are that are listening, and they've come out on top. And those are really, really good stories to communicate. So my name is Justin Kane. I'm your host of Cleaner Conversations with my co-host,
Sam Taylor.
Sam Taylor, thank you for doing this with me. We've had an exciting journey so far, and we have a great guest on with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. We dropped this a couple weeks ago and up several hundred listens, which for the dry cleaning industry, Spotify was telling me expect about 5 listeners when I created this channel. Thank you. I appreciate it. It had a very low bar for us to meet. But today we're joined by Ken Sandy, partner and co-founder of Dryy Garment Care out of the DMV, not the Department of Motor Vehicles. Over there in DC, Ken's built one of the most modern and recognizable garment care brands in the country, blending hospitality, technology, multifamily relationships, and a community-driven branding that just looks different than other cleaners. So, Ken, thank you for jumping in here. We appreciate you joining and spending time with us today.
Glad to be here. I feel like we're going to start calling shots on the game. This is very architectural commander correspondent setup. So this is really cool.
Love it. Yeah. You never know.
You never know. We're more than a dry cleaner.
Yeah. And I actually drove by and was in the DC area. We were trying to link up, I think, several years ago. And I just happened to drive by one of your locations, and you can see it. You can see it from off the road. Like, this is a very nice interior of a location. So, Ken, before we get into the business stuff,
sure,
you guys have a dry run 5K, the 6th year coming up.
That's right.
You're competitive. So can you tell us a little bit about why you guys do that? And then what's been your best finish?
Nice. So we learned earlier on that we needed to be more than a dry cleaner and truly be about community. And that sounds super dialogue loopy, right? Like we get onto the buzzwords, authenticity, transparency, community, pull up for the culture, but you got to really back that up. And we learned that we talked about it for a while. We did the bare minimum. And then the pandemic hit, and it really forced us to really figure out who we were as operators, or who we were not going to be, because we really thought we were going down. So we committed at that point to go down with a massive flame and turn this entire operation into a philanthropic bubble. What does that mean? That means we had resources, we had mobile vans, we had staff, we had property, we had real estate, we had capabilities, and we had customers that were wanting to help. We were all lost as a world, global issue. And so we just started performing call to actions. And where that led to was community and doing more. And so the Dry Run 5K was 2021. People were starting to move a little bit, still real apprehensive. And so we just took a stab at it. And we just figured that we'd bring visibility to other really incredible people in the community that were doing really dope things. And that if we could tie that into a cultural platform, if we stood behind that, we would really be driving results. We'd be giving back to communities. We'd be enriching things. And then ultimately what that has done is transcended into a community level of trust. And that's when we really learned on how important brand equity was, right? So it will never tie back to a KPI. It'll never tie back to a metric. You won't get 7 more shirts today because you do some community work. But what you will get is a trust factor in the community that will define loyalty, and then we'll give you grace and mercy when you mess up, right? Because I don't know about you guys, we make a lot of mistakes. And so have found that the forgiveness piece has really enlarged. And so there you have it. The Dry Run 5K was part of that philanthropic work, amongst many other things. So, and then the community says, great first year, you can't stop. So now it's a festival.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, the relational equity that you guys built, the branding that you guys put forth. And we know we
Sure.
don't do it for those reasons, right? Those are the byproducts of some of that stuff. But
That's right.
congratulations on, taking advantage of an opportunity, taking a step
Yeah.
and watching it play out. Sometimes we think we need these grandiose visions of what could be when in fact it's just taking the next step.
Yeah. Just adding value.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
adding value. And it's interesting too that you bring it up, and there's just a side note, but almost every single one of our episodes mentions the pandemic. I mean, what an impactful moment that it made on every single one of us to this day that we're still talking about it.
My grandmother used to say, "What don't break you makes you," right? And so I really feel that I've got a lot of gratitude towards the pandemic. I can't believe I'd ever say that, but it really did force us to become bigger, better, and more meaningful and have a lot more purpose.
The philanthropic
Yeah.
activities and things that you
Yeah.
guys are doing,
Yeah.
other dry cleaners see that, and maybe they would have been thinking, "Yeah, that's not really me. I'm a dry cleaner. I'm cleaning clothes. I'm a dry cleaner. I don't
Yeah.
need to do that." But seeing, you set an example and getting a lot of community around it, it's really cool because this, again, it's a people business.
Yep.
Well, just one little plug here, man. I was, super, super humble beginnings in life, and I was a coat for kids recipient from Puritan Cleaners in Richmond, Virginia, in the fourth grade. I'll never forget it. It was a red bomber jacket, favorite jacket on the planet. I got to pick it out. Where I'm going with that is look at the reciprocity, right? That you give to community, and then some point in the journey, those folks turn back and do it as well. So it's full circle.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's those kind of statements and those things that we hope translates very well on the podcast, right? That the other person listening to this goes, you know what? There's a side to this that is not just revenue, not just a problem that I'm trying to solve, but actually an impact that we're trying to make. So I appreciate that. Now, getting more into a little bit of your story too. So a lot of operators, they step into the space because it's been like a family business, right? They may be second generation, third or fourth. I don't believe that was the case for you. And
No.
if it was, tell us differently. But just take us back to what pulled you into this industry. Was it something that attracted you? Was it by happenstance? But now you're in it. Of course, you've made a
Yeah.
huge impact, but kind of just take us through that story of how you got into it and why that actually matters to the person listening.
In complete honesty, it was survival at the time, right? I'd gotten laid off from a government logistics position, maybe some dark times on this. I can't believe this is my life at 42. What the heck am I going to do? But it wasn't the garments that pulled me into the dry cleaning industry, right? It was the people, systems, and most importantly, I saw an opportunity to elevate an industry where most people had overlooked, right? My background in hospitality, service, real estate, technology, finance, whatever all that makes up, taught me how to build experiences, solve problems, and ultimately understand what great service really feels like. So once I got exposure to the dry cleaning and now textile side of things through restoration, I realized that this business really does touch people during some of the most important moments of their lives: weddings, careers, emergencies, family memories, right? And I also saw an industry with incredible potential that was ready for a more modern mindset, better communication, better branding, and a stronger experience. And so what kept me here, you have to arrive, but then you got to stay, right? So what kept me here is realizing that this business was built on trust and that people hand you pieces of their life every single day, and that responsibility, man, it really means something. It meant something to me. And so, although I may not come from generations of dry cleaners, I did come from an outsider's perspective and a builder mentality. You got to have a builder mentality to be in this industry, and I think that's what makes my approach very different.
One of the things I think that you highlighted that I don't want to rush by or pass by without kind of echoing it is what our past and the things that we experience prepare us for. You sometimes
Man,
have no clue about that. That it resonated to me because in my own life too,
sure.
a pivot had to take place in my life, but I didn't realize all the things that I had done in the past. They so prepared me for what I'm presently doing. So yeah, thank you for that nugget. I think it's worth noting
Sure.
that we just never know, and if there's optimism attached
Yeah.
to what we're going through, that it could actually have profound
Yeah.
impact.
You don't know until you know, right? And so,
You don't.
Ken, you talked about a red bomber jacket and you were the recipient of one. I actually don't know a whole lot of your story of how you grew up and
yeah.
how that positioned to who you are now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up, Richmond, Virginia, super humble, middle of the class family, really struggling to make ends meet. And so over years, my father finally got educated, went in the military, evolved and got us into a different level of life. But prior to that, things were really difficult. And so the bomber jacket that you referenced was part of the Boys Girls Club in Richmond, Virginia, to be honest. And we didn't have money for a winter coat that year, and so it was very, it's humiliating, it can be. But what Puritan
Yep.
does is they set up experiences. Like you go, you feel like you're being met where you're at. It's a real shopping experience. I got to try things on. I got to pick, right? And so that's where the red coat comes from. It's probably one of the most special stories. And now we do some of the largest coat drops here in DC. Again, full circle moment. Yeah. You brought the red coat
Yeah.
back up. You got,
Yeah, no, that means a
yeah,
lot. I think back to when the '08 housing crisis hit, and my parents, it really hit our family really hard. And that year, everybody was asking for Sperry shoes, the top side
oh,
of
yeah,
Sperry boat shoes. And I was
yeah,
like, Mom and Dad, like if I get one thing, I would love these boat shoes. And
yeah.
they were like, Hey Sam, like we can't afford it, but would this off-brand one be okay? And I remember getting the off-brand one as my only present. And how spoiled am I? And I went upstairs. I just kind of cried a little bit because I was like, they did
Yep,
everything they could to
that's
provide,
right.
just to give me something. So
Your Sperry
anyway,
era was our members only jacket era.
those look good too.
Members only. You were nobody unless you had a members only jacket.
Going back
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
dry conversation, did this start out as a tech first idea?
Um, so listen, absolutely right. Being in Washington D.C. Market, it works out in our favor, right? Because this region's always been ahead of the curve when it comes to technology, convenience, on-demand services. So the concept itself wasn't a hard sell from an innovation standpoint, right? What took a little longer was getting the consumers to be comfortable with removing that traditional human handoff, right? From such a relationship driven industry. So dry cleaning had always been a personal face to face interaction, counter service, familiarity. So we had to build trust behind the locker. Like, what's the muscle behind this thing, right? And prove that the experience was worthy and that it could be reliable, convenient, but still service focused, right? So once customers experience the convenience and realize that the quality and the accountability were still there, the adoption really took off. And then it was, how do you slow it down? Like, how do you harness this thing? So after that, the momentum really became really hard to stop.
Lockers
Yeah.
are, at least from my experience, people are either really succeeding or they're having a struggle with it.
I don't want to make light of it. It's another animal, right? And so let's be clear. The owners are going to kill me for saying this, of the technology concept or the locker concept. They're not smart lockers. We say they're smart technology, but we have to evolve. We've made it work. And so, there are some folks that are really doing it well now, but not just that, there's so much human error capability, right? Customers are moving fast. They're dropping their clothes in the locker. They're not ordering it right through the app. But yet when that happens, it's all about the dry cleaner being wrong. And at that moment, nobody's accountable to human error. So there's some things that you really have to work through before lockers make sense. And that's building the
When
proper infrastructure, hiring the right folks that understand it, the generational gaps on talent.
One of
Yeah.
the things that you had mentioned, Ken, was this growth mindset, which the upside of that is you see a lot of potential and opportunity. The downside is you're always seeing potential and opportunity. So 2016, that led you to an opportunity, right? To purchase or to come into partnership with Total Cleaners. So you can clarify that story with us. A lot of people do that, but rather than just kind of like out compete them and kind of go against them, why did you step into that space with them? And is that something that you look back and you're like, I would do it again
Yeah.
100 times over? Or take us
Yeah.
back to that scenario? Because a lot
Yeah.
of people listening to this, they're growth minded, right? And they're always looking, man, is that opportunity worth going after? Walk us through that step.
Yeah. I love sharing this because it really is it's the ability for me to demonstrate authenticity and transparency and tell the truth and be accountable. So the reality is this: I started the locker technology concept in the Washington, D.C. region, having
Okay.
no background, having no idea what I was doing, didn't know the difference between wet clean, dry clean, let alone Green Earth or Chrysler or any other things, or Unipress, or absolutely zero background. However, I was good at concept. I was great at branding. I was phenomenal at relationship and earning trust, right? So I had those things going for me. But frankly, I was in operational trouble very, very quick. And so while I was being disruptive, the owner, Mr. Wu, Total Cleaners, was absolutely the strongest operator in town from a valet standpoint. So I was disrupting maybe, but would have been a short disruption because they would have went back at some point. Because hear me, anyone listening, this is a very hard concept to do unless you are an owner operator and that you are controlling the quality and that you are doing everything in house. And so we, as smart entrepreneurs back then, we jump out there with less risk, what's less financial investment, what seems easiest path of resistance, and let's start a concept and outsource everything. But what I realized really quickly is I controlled nothing. I didn't control quality. I didn't even control margins. And so I was just this middle Oreo that was just getting squished. And so thankfully, I'm grateful that the owner of Total Cleaners found me and was like, well, it's not going away. He is a little bit disruptive, but it is a way for me to get into technology as well. So we merged at that time. Listen, timing is everything. And it was just once in my life, a perfect timing intersection. And so he had absolute profound infrastructure, had work, had relationships already going, had the manpower, had the real estate. And then I had the reimagination of branding and, the galvanized approach to making this sexy and urban and fun and all the other stuff. So honestly, it's just a perfect marriage. Long answer, but it's
Yeah,
relevant.
well, I love this story because there's a few things that I highlighted. One is when you don't have that control, you don't have control over the reputation or the brand. And ultimately, if you don't have that control, it could really, really backfire on you. And the other thing that stood out to me was it was a win-win, right? You walked into that opportunity not to just take, but to contribute. We've heard that a lot from guests on this podcast of like, man, this is not about just winning yourself. This is about who all wins along with you. So well done. And that was a great way to communicate it.
Yeah, something that comes through really clearly when people talk about you and when we listen to you is the team over me approach.
Yeah.
Putting people before profit. I love that. I love that in a way that's pretty uncommon, I would say, in this industry. Where does that come from?
Sometimes I just think it's natural, right? I think that we look for where things come from. Sometimes it's just a gift and it's just your characteristic and some of your inner workings. But the mindset honestly comes from, again, I refer to this again, my upbringing. I came from very humble beginnings. So most of my early life was rooted in understanding struggle and sacrifice and the importance of people showing up for each other, right? So as I evolved through education, corporate leadership, and entrepreneurship, I realized that business that truly lasts are the ones that value the people the most, as just as much as they value performance, quite frankly. But don't get me wrong, I want to be clear. This isn't just kumbaya, man. We margins matter and profitability is necessary, right? But none of it works without the people. They are the real engine that's behind us, right? And they're behind every operation, they're behind every customer, they're behind every experience, and most importantly, they're really behind every win. So for me, putting people first it's not strategy. It's not something I learned from a book. It just feels like the right thing to do. And I've seen firsthand, I can back this up, that when you genuinely care for the people and you invest in them and you help them succeed, the returns that you get are just always bigger than the money. That's we're living that every day.
Absolutely. Because then you're making an impact, not just a profit, even though, like you said, profit is
Yeah.
important, margins are important,
Yeah.
but the team that cares, because if you care about them, they will care about what they do. And that comes across in
Yeah.
flying colors. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had like these three phases of the podcast, right? We want to educate, we want to equip, we want to entertain. This is kind of like putting on the coaching hat while we talk through some of these questions with equipping some of the dry cleaners. So
Yeah.
some of them have heard of the concept of lockers. Some of them have tried and failed. Some of them are like, man, I'm interested. I'm intrigued about this idea of what the lockers are. So one,
Yeah.
explain it.
Yeah.
And then two, next steps. Like, how did you get into it? Was it
Mhm.
the right pitch? Was it the right opportunity? Did you fumble the ball and pick it back up and keep on running? Kind of walk that listener through the locker concept and where to start.
Lockers kind of found me. I didn't really find lockers. When I was
Okay.
laid off in 2015, again, back to like reinvention number 10, I probably failed at most things prior. I started a small marketing business because what I do well is marketing, really good at branding. I'm really good at community trust and building teams. So I started a small marketing business that led me to a laundromat and a guy named Jesse Gabrana who was getting into a big wash and fold kind of route approach. Um, Asked me what I thought about dry cleaning lockers. So I thought it was brilliant, right? But the first pitch wasn't about dry cleaning. It was about convenience. It was about resident experience. It was about adding value to a property. So at that point, that combination allowed us to position ourselves as an amenity partner to the multifamily world, right? Because here in DC, I think DC does it better than any market in terms of multifamily, in terms of density, quadrant. You're not just a vendor, right? If you could help them do things like complement retention, right? Lifestyle, convenience, without adding workload to their team, those are things that were just I was already wired that way. So that was just yet again another solution that I could bring to market in some capacity and make a difference. And then when you could convince them that you could offer that, but then you prove that you could really deliver that, well, then the conversations changed really fast and things became much more inbound.
So where would somebody start?
Yeah, so I started at the ground level, right? It was just cold call. We call them drive-bys, walking in unannounced. And at that time, that was really a real popular method in the era that we were as a nation, right? Cold calls were not so arduous. People took them, people responded to them. You could walk in, people were excited to see you. That has now since changed. So I'd walk in with concierge, leasing, hope to get to a property manager. Ultimately, you're trying to get to the decision maker. And that's the real key I would give advice to. Determine quickly who in this building is running the show. And it looks different in every building. Some buildings are a little more autonomous. They give their staff a lot more leadership and autonomy to make decisions. You've got some that micromanage from a higher level, like a regional level. And so for me, that was painful, and the cycles were a little longer. So we took it up a notch. We went to the developers. So there was a lot of construction in this town. And so how exciting would it be to meet at pre-construction and become part of the development delivered piece of the asset, right? Versus when the building's built and Greystar shows up, we're already there. We're part of the trifecta of the package solution, the dry cleaning solution, and then the mailboxes. That's the trifecta that has been going on here for a decade. So then you cast one net and you get a whole portfolio, right? So then you're on a pre-construction. So as buildings were developing, architects are reaching out. We created a very all roads lead to dry, all inbound concept. So they were asking you for your schematic design and configurations. And that's when it really got fun. Like, who knew? There's no bad place to start. You could do a one-off, or we just tend to, I don't do one-offs well. I like to cast and bring home the harvest.
Bazzuto, Greystar, Learner, we had mentioned, they're
Yeah.
enterprise level real estate companies. When people are calling us, a lot of times they're like, "Hey, I want to get into the B2B side, cold calling."
Yeah.
Is that still the way that you would try to build it? I know you guys are, further along now, but for those who are trying to look at a locker concept, is there a still door to door? Is that still the way that you would go about it these days, or is there collateral that you would make?
I think it's a combination of everything. I think collateral is crucial. I think you can drop off stuff building to building. You have to remember at this point, you're bringing nothing that nobody's already done, and the solutions are already out there. So now you're building trust with the new relationship. And so you have to convince people why you versus what's already in place. And I think that you have to do a mix of everything: social media, community outreach. You got to be present, do pop ups in buildings. Listen, these buildings require so much social outreach every single day. Now, there's a metric. I mean, the staff are tasked to bring in so much outreach. So become part of that. Start doing pop-ups, introducing yourself. Fill a void, right? At some point that does transcend to something. I would do it all. I would do it through LinkedIn. I would do it through social media. I would even do it through TikTok. I mean, we've got people now that find us on TikTok.
Yeah.
I know
Wow.
it's unreal.
Yeah, we're
It's,
really
yeah,
well.
it's a truth.
Yeah, really well said. As dry cleaners, again, we're going to go back to this growth
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
So as you're thinking about this, I see that the poster behind you is FRSTeam. So at some point you added that as another stream, another opportunity, another business to add value, but also bring in revenue. So when it comes to restoration after the fires, after the disasters, you saw that there's an opportunity there. Would you encourage a dry clean operator? Because again, the times are changing and they have over the last decade or so where there's
Yeah.
more, you have to kind of be creative, right? Of where else is this revenue going to come from besides just the dry cleaning? Because the piece counts are, consistently going down. So walk us through how you would encourage an operator to explore to see whether this is a supplementary option.
I don't know how people don't have a different option. I really don't. Unarguably, this is a
Okay.
shrinking industry. Over the past 7 years, we've all talked piece counts shrinking. Nobody can solve it. We do more marketing. We expand our reach. We increase our routes. We go bigger, longer, further. And so piece count. So it's definitely dwindling. For us, again, here we go back to the pandemic. We had talked about getting into textile restoration because we're dry cleaners. And because we're in multifamily, we deal a lot with property management in the commercial space. So they have several losses in a given day, right? Water leaks, fires. And so, as their trusted dry cleaner, they were already asking us to do this work because they knew no different. And we had talked as a leadership team about diversifying. Unfortunately, at the time, dry was so hot, the rebrand it was doing so well. We probably would have never gotten around to it and just talked about it. And the pandemic hit again. We're like, man, I never want to be here again. Like those were some scary feelings. Like you invest everything, you leverage every bit of cash that you've got. Now you've taken on real estate and you're doing retail and you've got lockers and inventory and labor. It was an easy decision. So we thought, well, how do we do a simple parallel, stay in the wheelhouse that we do well? That's dry cleaning, which equates to textiles. And so we set out on a search to figure out who we could partner with. We talked about doing independent versus franchise. That's a whole nother podcast. But we chose to go with franchise, and we selected FRSTeam, and we started doing textiles, realized that that's also a shrinking industry to some degree. And then we were offered to get into a larger piece and do contents and electronics. And so fast forward, we are doing far more contents, but we still do textiles. It's been the best decision ever. The margins are absolutely attractive. And think about it, right? It's not a customer. I don't have to worry about retention, right? Hopefully you only have one fire. Hopefully you only have one leak, and that you never need me again. So the bar's low. Exceeding expectations are even lower. And so you could be a superstar really quickly. And so we have the resource and the people in the warehouse again. So it made sense. I would encourage every dry cleaner to consider it. Unless you're just doing so good, you don't have to. And I don't know those folks.
What region are you in? What area do you guys service?
Yeah, we service restoration from the DC line all the way to Richmond, Virginia, over to Williamsburg, west to Charlottesville, and then back up through Prince William, Fauquier County. So that 95 South corridor of Virginia, a little bit east to Williamsburg, and just west to the Charlottesville line.
There
Yeah.
was obviously there was a big hurricane, what, 2 years ago now? Was that Helene that
Yeah.
went through Western North Carolina? When something as big as that happens, it makes its way up to you, right? Did you guys
It
get some of
does.
that restoration work or?
It's funny. There's terminology that's applicable to this industry. Your cat season for catastrophe. We're not in like where you're at. My God, restoration is really well in your area, right? Because of the Hurricane
Yep.
Row. Our friends
Rogers down here.
Rogers, yeah, they're incredible. First of all, they're incredible people, but they run an incredible business. And I say the benefit to catastrophe, it does yield a lot of work volume. Things are the wild, wild west in those moments. And so you make a lot of money during those times, or out west for the wildfires. We did have the winter storm this past year, right? And so that really yielded a really great first quarter. But technically, this is not a real catastrophic region. We need lots of rain continuous for 15 days, and then it creates basement floods or tree falls because the ground gets soft and it takes out roofs, which then creates packouts. So we're a little more moderate. We don't have a big fire season that happens that you can rely on every year to yield. But for the people close to the coast or around like the shore, they obviously experience a little more fruitful restoration component.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking to Sean at a conference
Yeah,
just the other day. A super sharp guy. Evidently, they're crushing it. So,
they are.
There's staying in the coaching mindset that you kind of speaking from this perspective. You had mentioned the care for your people. You talked about the work that you're doing in the community. All that kind of speaks back to me, this one word that I absolutely love, which is called culture, right? I always heard that culture is the plate that the steak sits on it. If the plate is dirty, the steak becomes unappealing. So talk to us a little bit about how and why you thought about establishing a solid culture for the businesses that you run.
Culture's currency, right? It transcends to dollars. I mean, it really, really does. And so culture is not just important for our leadership. It's important for your community. It's important for your consumer base. And without it, I think the operator today that's not evolving into a more culture-driven atmosphere might already be in trouble. I think that the generation, well, at my age, I really put a lot into setting it up for the next generation. I think that's a duty. I think we have a responsibility. And if you don't know how those folks are operating and their mindsets are calculating things, you are also in trouble. And they are big on culture. And they align with other companies that align with their moral compasses. So without the culture, you don't get their attraction.
yeah, labor's something, I mean, everybody's talking about these days. You want to like where you work.
That's right.
Values and purpose. Yeah. Do I feel like we're aligned, right?
We're on an era, guys. We've been talking about that in the corporate structure for the last 5, 7, 10 years. Culture, 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 pillars, cornerstones, right? And while I believe big corporations believe it, I think it's underdelivered. It's just a big SOP sitting somewhere, a handbook that rarely ever really gets met. You never really feel like you matter. But smaller businesses, I'm telling you that the labor pool is getting more difficult to find. Labor costs are going up more and more and more. So I really believe, and we are living it, that culture is no longer negotiable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper to keep somebody, a good player on your team, than to have to consistently
It
hire new
is.
people.
It really is. At
Yeah.
some point, the money doesn't, I mean, it's silly to say it doesn't matter, but people really need to feel like they make a difference
Yep.
or that you
Oh,
value them. So, yeah.
totally. I just feeling like you're actually helping is, at least for
Yeah.
me, gigantic. Talking about, setting things up for the next generation. If you could go back and do one thing differently in creating Dry, maybe something you just do sooner or smarter, does something stick out in your head?
I would have invested in branding and storytelling much earlier. We spent so much time proving operational excellence and that we underestimated the value of controlling the narrative and emotionally connecting with people. Um, Once we leaned into that, guys, everything has accelerated. If you follow me on social media, I take it very serious, the human connection. And I would have definitely invested in branding and storytelling far long ago.
This is such an interesting world, even for us, but people outside, it's cool
Yeah.
to for them
Yeah.
to learn a little bit more about it. We have an entertain section and we merged that with our off the clock section, Ken. This is our favorite section. What, what's the wildest experience you've had with your business? Is there like a funny story that comes to mind with something you picked up out of a locker?
Okay.
Does that ring a bell?
Well, keep in mind, we're in DC, so we're probably wired for sound. So I should be very careful.
Probably the
Big,
case.
big brother's watching. There's nothing we haven't seen. I'll tell you that. Put it like that. We deal with a lot of politics here because we service the House of Representatives, Senate, and some other big agencies. So you would be astonished to see what we see. I can't give the details, but just large imagination. Nothing's
Hey,
off the.
just let your imagination run wild. That sounds great. I have a question though. You
Yeah.
you of course have been shaped, right? Your the way that you view life, the way that you view
Yeah.
people before profit, those kind
Yeah.
of values that are coming out in this call. Who's to blame for that good stuff? Who's inspired you that you are like, man, this is where that comes from?
Oh gosh, my grandmother. She gets all the credit. She was
Does
just.
she?
Oh, you
Shout
kidding
out
me?
to all the grandmas
Ah,
who just
good. They don't
whooped
make
us.
them like that anymore. They just don't make them. And I'm not
They
trying
do
to be
not. They're
please.
because yeah, because they'll get thrown in jail,
She said
right?
she saw things. She saw things before they happened. She was absolutely selfless. I mean,
Love it.
just always saw the good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely love it. Okay, I do have two more questions,
Sure.
and I just want to say thank you again for your time today.
Yeah, it's fun.
What excites you, if anything, about the future of this industry? Like, we want to make sure we're bringing a certain level of optimism and energy to this space. We know it's not dead. We know that there's great light at the end of the tunnel, whatever that may be. What excites you about this industry and what the future holds?
I think that dry cleaners are really starting to recognize how much footholding they have on impact that they can make. Think about it. We are at the absolute street level of every community, right? We touch a wide span of demographic and we have a lot of capability to give back. I don't know how you not do that going forward with some of the shrinkage and the industry's changing, the sustainability, the eco-friendly movement. I think, people are wearing clothes out of bamboo now. So, I mean, if you're not getting creative and being community focused and creating other avenues to drive your business. I don't know how long that lasts, but I just think that I've sat on committees with the DLI. I know plenty of owner operators from Seattle to Clearwater that are really adapting this community. Just, I mean, man, together we achieve so much more. And how much better and brighter the future would be if we just gave back a little bit. Like, listen, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, just a little bit, 1%. And so I see that shifting, and it's really exciting watching dry cleaners stand up and go, I've been here all the time, man. It's time to really show up.
Yeah, and what I appreciate is you just got to step into the space, right? And let things unfold, but step
Right.
into this space.
Yeah.
And that is exciting. I love what you said. You guys are the boots on the ground. You're at
Right.
the customer facing level, and it's just if you are willing to step in that space, who knows where it's going to turn
That's
out
right.
to.
It goes all good. That's what happens, right? And so not needing to know where it's going is sometimes half the battle, right? And so when I let some of that go, man, and just follow the pre-orchestrated path, man, it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, here's one of the questions I love to ask at the end of every episode. I know there's individuals that are listening to this
Yeah.
that they've grinded, right? They put in the time, they put in the effort. Maybe they haven't done it perfectly, but maybe they
Yeah.
hit that pandemic moment of like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to make it through. What would
Yeah.
your encouragement be to them? They still want to make it, right?
You just have to have a do whatever it takes mentality. If you don't, then just figure out something else. I think that you have to understand that there's not a long-term strategy anymore, right? Consumers have changed, expectations have changed, convenience is no longer optional. You don't have to abandon your foundation. I think that you have to really take on a mindset of that I have to evolve, or somebody's going to evolve right past me.
You have a marketing guy. Dry cleaners probably would never hire somebody to walk around the camera, film, and all of that. Was that just something that you thought about, or did you see that model works in another business
No,
similarly?
no, I'll just feel it, take the risk. When it works, you just keep driving to it. So I had a mentor in 2017 tell me, Ken, listen, you're in dry cleaning. Dry cleaning is boring. Start adding value, start shooting content, start collaborating through digital real estate. And I did that. It was exhausting, editing my own stuff. It was not my lane. So when it had a few dollars, man, I have a guy that I have on retainer. Arguably, people say it's not worth the money. I always say that it is. And so we have agreements where, we have ideas, and as long as I give them 24-hour notice, they show up wherever I need them to show up to film and capture content.
You know where the intangible is? It gets you doing it, right? It gets you thinking about it. You're constantly engaged with that process when you're thinking about producing the next video. How can I add value? So I think that's an intangible that goes unnoticed sometimes.
I unequivocally feel that I have contributed to the community piece of this industry, and it's through content and storytelling. And I've witnessed other operators evolve and give credit to the inspiration. So content's it's necessary.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ken, wrapping it up,
Yeah.
where can everybody find you?
Sure. LinkedIn, of course, Ken Sandy, and then Dryy Garment Care can be found on Instagram at DryDC. That's DRYYDC. That's where we just hang out right now. And we're on some AI platforms, but I'm finding that people aren't quite there yet. So
And do you do any consulting or coaching, or if somebody wanted to have a conversation about lockers, is that welcome?
I need a proposal. No, I'm teasing. I've been doing. I've been giving it away for free for years.
We'll put your calendar link in the bottom in the mentions here, or the description.
Yeah.
That's
Sunday
Let's create an
afternoons.
LLC. You guys be my marketing company. Let's create an LLC.
yeah. This is available wherever you guys would listen, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Ken, man, I'm really happy we got to do this, and
Yeah.
thanks for your time.
Real
Yeah,
quick, I want to say
really,
thank you.
really enjoyed this.
Thank you guys. This is so necessary, by the way. So thank you for creating a platform where we can all be seen, heard, and share what works, what not works. And so you guys get all the credit. Hats off.
Thank you very much. Well, this is Cleaner Conversations. My name is Justin Kane with my co-host,
Samuel Taylor.
and we have enjoyed this journey so far and look forward to bringing you some of the best voices and content that we possibly can. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, guys.